Tigers Radio Podcast presents Bullpen Theater.
Against hope that I would not have to have this particular press conference.
Total bullshit.
In which I am going to cancel some regular season games.
Move this man!
We worked hard to avoid an outcome that's bad for our fans.
No.
Bad for our players. And bad for our clubs. I want to assure our fans that our failure to reach an agreement was not due to a lack of effort by either party. The players came here for 9 days. They worked hard. They tried to make a deal, and I appreciate their effort.
And you're so busy feeling good that you never question why things are going so well. You want to know why? 'Cause I'm a liar! Yeah, I'm a liar!
Our committee of club representatives committed to the process. They offered compromise after compromise and hung in past the deadline to make sure that we exhausted every possibility of reaching an agreement before the cancellation of games. So far, the parties have failed to achieve their mutual goal of reaching an agreement.
But that's not all. You also made yourself look like a jerk in front of millions of people. And you brought shame and disgrace on your family name for generations to come. You're a complete loser.
All right, welcome in to another episode of Tigers Radio Podcast here at MotorCityBengals.com and, of course, the Tiger Medical Report. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Chris Brown and Uper. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, and Stitchler. And joining us tonight from Locked On Tigers, one of the first and foremost, congratulations on his new recent writing gig as he's covering high school hockey as Canton last night beat Stevenson. And that was a team, I used to do play-by-play for Stevenson.
Oh, wow.
And Coach Mitchell has a really good program out there. To say Canton upset him, that was a big one. That totally caught me off guard. Scott Bentley, who's free press, right?
Detroit News.
Okay. Detroit News. So he's doing freelance work for that and starting to get his writing game. But I don't know if you heard our intro or not, but that was
Heard a little bit of it.
Yeah, it was. You have to listen to the podcast to basically we put together a series of clips as Rob Manfield's press.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, especially at the end because I had to put Don Pardo was on a Weird Al song from 1984, and that whole part, "You're a complete loser." Look, it's just I know that fan is short for fanatic, but look, not even as a fan, it's been one of those things where, and I know you're pissed, Scott, and we'll get to everybody else here in a second, but first and foremost, gentlemen, how's everybody doing this evening?
I'm great. I love chopping up with y'all, man. This is you guys are some of my favorite people to talk to in the community we've created. So always love coming on. Always love interacting with y'all. And I'm just happy to be here, baby. I still got my own show to record later tonight, but I'm happy to be here now.
The grind for you during this time. Salute to you every day. And it just
now with the news, I'm trying to. I'm like really under the radar, dropping hints at my boss at the news to be like, hey, let me cover high school baseball in the spring. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, it's with playoffs and then but I got Red Wings too, and it's quite a plate. But I'm very happy to be here.
That's awesome. Chris, how are you doing this evening?
Not bad, dealing with baseball lockout and impending nuclear war. And other than that, things are good.
Other than that,
yeah. Hey, you.
Well, Scott, I need to know if you have any intel already on the Calumet Copper Kings and their chance at a state title. My alma mater, they just won in overtime against Houghton this weekend.
That was the double overtime, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a crazy game. That was
So
a
they
crazy
might be coming
game.
down your way.
They might, man. So the first round of states will be kind of like regionally chopped off again, but then all the rest are all at USA and Plymouth. So yeah, they might if they win one more, I'll have my eyes on them for sure.
All right. Well, I got to root on the Copper Kings. You know,
I'm about it.
we don't have a lot up there,
You got hockey though.
but they got the hockey.
You got hockey.
And it's just going to be another thing where Trenton's just going to trounce on Canton. No offense to Canton Chiefs fans out there listening, but Trenton every year, since high school. I mean, even when I was in high school, they were in the old Metro division. They were just a terrorizing team. And that's such a program down there. But so yeah, we'll get right in the Rob Manfield conference, press conference here. But also we're going to talk about probably one of the greatest pitching staffs of all time. The 2013-2014 Detroit Tigers. We're going to break that down, do a little deep dive on that this evening because, I mean, there's a lot of minor league baseball to talk about. There was the inter-squad game today, but without highlights. And Chris Mikowski, the Detroit News, quoting, "I'm not going to tweet every live score stuff." It's like, okay, well, no one asked you to. So thanks. I'm sure. Anyway. So that being said, let's move on. But so I expected, honestly, among the fan-sided editors, we were kind of all pumped. We were thinking, okay, this is going to be over. We're going to have baseball. Baseball's going to start on time. And I don't know what they did in December or January, whether they were wintering or, you know, how summer is used as an adjective for rich people. I was wondering if they were wintering or skiing or what the hell they were doing. But Scott, I'll start with you. It's just where right now, I know they're trying to get everything settled in, but it just seems, in some cases, I know some fans are done, and I really believe that some of these fans are done. I mean, what say you?
Yeah, no, I fully believe that a lot of fans are done, and it's. I was actually having this conversation with my dad the other day, and it's wild how history is going to repeat itself with the 94, 95. Like that is they're going to come back. Ticket prices are going to be higher because they're going to want to make their money back. No one's going to want to go, and we're going to be in the same boat. And then it's going to take a crazy baseball story to kind of bring fans back in. I truly believe that that's what's going to happen. And you would think that people would learn their lesson from last time, but now we kind of have a new generation, I guess you would say, of owners that are in baseball that maybe weren't in ownership positions back in the 90s. So now they're having to learn that lesson themselves. And there's a clip of the Cubs owner and when he bought the team that was going around Twitter, and an interview that he had when he bought the team. His son approached him and was like, "Hey, you should buy the Cubs." And he was like, I don't care about baseball. I have zero interest in baseball. Why would I buy the Cubs? And then he pulled out the revenue numbers and he's like, all right, let's talk about buying the Cubs. And he said the exact words, "Now this is a business for me." So that is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with 30 dudes that could not care less about the game of baseball. And it all comes down to money. They don't care that April's getting chopped, as has been said by many other people. April is a very low revenue month for teams anyway, especially the northern teams. They have no problem letting April go. The TV deals that most of these teams have, except for Yes Network because they're like their own entity, but most of the Bally stuff is, you don't really have to pick it up till mid-May in order for it to actually kick into effect and be a real thing. And I think, the odds the other day were the Vegas odds dropped for how soon baseball is going to start. And the odds for no season at all were better odds than the season starting in April.
Chris, what about you? We were both somewhat, I don't know. I was trying not to be a skeptical jerk like I usually am, or a cynical jerk, but couldn't help it.
Yeah, well, it's I think we were all kind of not necessarily, constantly hitting refresh, but we were all kind of up there with that artificial deadline, hoping that things would get worked out. And it sounded like there was some progress. You got to watch these people walk back and forth 38 times for some reason. And then, I don't know. Then the next day it was like, oh, wait, no, this isn't happening. And yeah, now we've seen all sorts of stuff come out since then, some players indicating what the owners were trying to like sneak stuff in at the 11th hour and hoping they wouldn't notice. And then other people talking about, well, hey, the owners don't miss any revenue in April or whatever, as long as they can get like a certain point, they'll still get all their stuff. So yeah, it just all feels very naked and gross. And then what do we see? Something today about four owners thought that the last and best offer was too good.
Too generous.
Yeah, too generous, which is it just goes to show you, like, yeah, I mean, there was never any really good faith offer to meet the players in the middle. The concessions that they offered were not real concessions. Like, hey, we gave you the universal DH. They wanted that too. I mean, the one thing that they kind of did, I guess, was the arbitration pool. I mean, that's something new and it's something for players, but the competitive balance tax barely going up at all, and then for 3 years doesn't make any sense. And it was clear that they were really not negotiating in good faith, and it's disappointing as hell.
What about you, Uper?
Well, I think back when we all started with MCB, for instance, a couple years ago, and we kind of messed around with an initial podcast before we settled on what we wanted to do. We talked even back then that this CBA negotiation was going to be a war, if not a bloodbath. And so in some respects, we've seen this coming for a long time. But I think, with the quarantine and the messed up season and what the industry and the country has gone through, maybe part of me was starting to hope cooler heads would prevail and they would get something done for this year. But instead, I think we've seen we're going to have the war. They're going to have this reckoning that could last a while. I could easily see this going into Memorial Day. I don't see why it couldn't, because the union, I'm sure they are tired of hearing for the last decade of how they've been getting raked over the coals. So they're going to try to get this done. They're going to try to win. And the owners, as Chris noted, they have the money to wait it out. So something could possibly happen, I suppose, this month, and cooler heads still prevail. But I think the war we talked about back then is coming.
No, and Uber, I remember that conversation. And one of the things that I don't understand is why would Rob Manfred say this would be disastrous? You have all this data. You have all the data in the world to indicate that your audience is getting older. It's not getting younger. You have the same problem as the WWE. And then you see something along the lines of the minimum salary 10 years ago was one of the highest. Now it's one of the lowest. The NBA has surpassed you. The NFL has surpassed you. And the NFL has been notoriously – the reason why the NFL is such a good product is how often do you hear about labor strikes? How often do you hear about that? Barely ever. The 87 strike, and that was like done like that. And the NFL has had one of the best postseason runs they've had in a while. MLB, the same thing. You would think to yourself, the Braves won the World Series in a very compelling way. It was a good series. And then you go, you wait that, why so long? And that's the only thing that I don't understand about this whole thing. And you could tell the difference between Rob Manfred and Bud Selig was an owner. He had stakes in the game. And I think he was able to kind of like just had like the kind of relatable relationship with the rest of the owners. Whereas I think Rob Manfred, who I don't really, he's a lawyer. I know he was trying to give out a lot of money during the steroid thing that we talked about on the Juice Ball documentary thing. And I like, he just says the World Series trophy is a piece of metal. And a lot of these things, I just think he's trolling fans. He's just like, here, I'm going to give you both my middle fingers and I don't care. And really I'm not even like, we're all writers here. So if you look at it from an objective standpoint, even just look back for a second and go, okay, there's things clearly that he's not looking into. And he's just like, it's like this, like he just doesn't look at the information. The fact that they're so hell-bent on we're going to make the rule changes as we see fit, as we don't want to wait a year. We don't want to wait a year. We're going to do it right now. Why? Don't you need the test? I mean, you made the Atlantic League right now, all those changes they had. There a lot of the players were pissed about that too. So I just, to be that tone deaf is just, you're basically telling that you're basically insulting the fans, because a lot of the guys in the higher offices are Ivy League, so they think everybody else is dumb or something. I don't, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm just a dude who does a podcast and all that jazz. So it's just like, it's frustrating. And I also have to write 20 articles a month for Motor City Bengals. You think I want to write 9 like the 9 trade options? No. You look, I have no desire. I want to do good work. All right. I like doing good pieces.
I feel you.
Like I have to hit a requirement. It's frustrating. And it's frustrating. I want to write something where I doing these West Michigan Whitecap projection stuff. That stuff's great because that's actual information. But I have to, I don't know, like and Kurt's a great boss and all that, but it's just, there's a lot of expectations for this stuff on the blog side of things. And for you, Scott, you have to do a podcast every single day for 15 minutes. I mean, there's only so often where you can go. I mean, with the Red Wings, just about 500 right now. I mean, I know they're far out of a playoff spot at the moment. But then they play an exciting game against the Maple Leafs where you see something like Stanley Cup hockey for Super Nintendo there scores, or Blades of Steel kind of stuff. But you have Michigan basketball and this strange warp thing with Juwan Howard. There's so much going on to fill the void. And this would be a nice way to start the spring like we always used to. We have the minor leagues. And yeah, so I'm sorry, that was my rants, but I
let it all out, brother.
Man.
Safe space.
It's I mean, like it's again, I applaud you. Every day you have to do. It's like the same thing. It's a podcast. I think sometimes is even for 15 to 20 minutes is even harder to do than a blog because it's a different set of circumstances. But
yeah, it's a task. Let me tell you. I literally tweeted out the day that they were canceling games. I tweeted out in the Lockdown account. I was like, all right, what do you guys want to listen to? Because I have no clue what to talk about. Like, genuinely, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do for the next month and a half, 2 months. So please tell me what. And thankfully, the listeners I have over there are pretty interactive. So I got some actual response. But I mean, my goodness, man, I'm talking about college, like not even Tiger affiliated stuff. Just like, oh well, we have a okay pick next year. Let's look at the 300 people we could take with that pick. Like, I mean, it's as you all know, it's a thing every single day. And anytime you have to hit a minimum amount of either writing or recording and stuff, it's a lot, man.
So on our YouTube channel, we have a couple of comments that come in, and Chris Sidoroff, I probably apologize for butchering your name there. My opinion is that the whole lockout issue is total BS. Both sides say what they want to reach a deal, but clearly one side lied. Commissioner Manfred cares nothing about the game. And then Walter earlier mentioned there's a Boris rumor going around that he blew up the negotiations, but I don't know how truthful that one is. So yeah, there's a couple of things that outliers there, including the guy who was trying to break the union on purpose, and that was. They didn't mention the owner's name, but everybody kind of knew it was Jerry Reinsdorf of the White Sox because the guy's a ball buster for according to what's been told. But
everyone,
everyone's okay. So it's not like if some White Sox podcast is going to listen, like, no, that's not true. It's like, well,
according to everybody,
according to everybody.
They hate him
according to the White Sox organization. Yeah.
Reinsdorf is pretty much Joseph Stalin when it comes to owners. Right?
I was gonna have Raj mock up a Dorfon baseball type thing, but with Reinsdorf. But that's taken us back a couple decades with Tim Conway.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody remembers Tim Conway at this point in our current
generation.
Tim Conway. But no, because even like what cracks me about Reinsdorf is that he again why he wants to break the union so bad. I remember when he was on the documentary about the Bulls and about Scottie Pippen's deal. We gave him a fair market deal, and when Pippen wanted to get more money, no, of course he's not gonna bend. I mean, this is the same guy who hired Hawk Harrelson to be the GM in 1986.
Bro, and Tony La Russa last year. What are we talking about?
No, yeah, dude. But think about this for a second. You're Hawk Harrelson. You're calling games on TV, and you're complaining about the team, and you're like, well, I can do it better. And Ryan George's like, okay, fine. You fired David Dombrowski, and it's before he becomes a GM. You fired Tony La Russa then, and then this is your way of making up after he's long and retired. Oh, I'm sorry, I fired you in '86 because I was wanting to have this guy run a franchise who's never done it before.
Well, the thing is, they're trying to negotiate a CBA to move forward for the next X amount of years. But really, just think about forward thinking in general for baseball. And you have someone with a dinosaur mentality like Jerry Reinsdorf really being a mover and shaker behind the scenes for the owners. That's a recipe for a disaster.
Oh, yeah. So, but other than that, in terms of what's going on with the Tigers, we have the prospects out. There was Andre Lipsy is one of my favorite prospects out there. And I've been a big fan of him since he got drafted. Had a home run. He had a really good game. And again, this is a guy who's last year's batting average, but he still hit for power. He's been tinkering with his swing since he got drafted, so he had a good game. There was also, I think, Riley Green hit one to the street yesterday in the scrimmage, and tomorrow the Tigers are going to open up a game at, I believe it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I believe it is, down in Lakeland. So it's a free game. And also, if you're going to be going to a game and complain that you can't get an autograph, bite me. Seriously, like don't complain about, like I saw somebody complaining about that in the Facebook comments. I think it was under Tiger Minor League Tracker, good old friend of the show, Kean. It's like, what the anyway. Yeah, I mean, and then you see the West Coast news with their potentially earthquake too. So the whole world's going to hell in a damn handbasket lately. And then, all right, but on the positive, we'll talk about the 2013-2014 Tigers.
So positive. So positive.
that was such a segue into that. But yeah, because I know that one of the things about those teams, and I start with you, Scott, because is this a team? These two teams, right in your wheelhouse of getting into the Tigers?
I mean, I've you're talking to like so I was born in 98.
Okay.
So the reason that I got into the Tigers was because when I was like 5 and 6 years old, they were horrible, and you could get tickets for no money. And my dad and I would go all the time because of that. And so I mean, I would, as a kid, didn't watch like kid shows or anything and watch baseball instead. Like I was a weirdo. So like that was when I was a freshman and sophomore in high school in 2012 and 13. So 14 would have been my sophomore junior year.
Yeah.
So it was fun being a high schooler and having the Tigers make the postseason, win the division every year was awesome. But yeah, the 2013 team that was the team. We'll get into all that, I'm sure. But they should have brought home a hunk of metal.
Should have, yeah.
Yes.
But this is I'm working on a piece right now on the 2012 Tigers team that lost in the World Series and the whole construction behind that. And one of the things so we'll start with the last Jim Leyland team, which is the 2013 Tigers. And there's a lot of things about I noticed on social media that we tend to romanticize. We romanticize, a lot of the fans do at least, was about the 84 Tigers. Everybody talks about 84 Tigers. Everybody talks about like the role players and everything. But this 2013 Tigers team was one of the, in terms of from perspective of as a fan, but as just it was one of my favorite teams I ever watched, because there's so much. You look at a team that prior to that, even in the 06 team, I mean, the 06 team, you had Kenny Rogers, you had Jeremy Bonderman, you had, you didn't have a rotation here that is it's just one of the finest ones, and not even in Tigers history, but probably in history, period. And I'm not even exaggerating that because, and one of the things we wanted to split this up, we wanted to split up how the teams were going to be. And Chris, you were taking the starting rotation, correct? Is that right, Chris?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I had to unmute and it wouldn't open up. Yeah. So really the 2012, 2013, 2014, those are all by WAR, at least by FWAR, top 30 starting rotations in the last 21 years since 2000. And the 2013 squad was the fourth best, which includes like the Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling Diamondbacks is ahead of them. And then that one Phillies rotation that had Halladay and Lee and Oswalt and Hamels in it, which is pretty good too. But yeah, so no, it was interesting because a lot of that came together the previous 2 years. In 2011 they got Doug Fister in the trade from Seattle. In 2012 they got Sanchez, and then like 2013 everybody was fully weaponized, it seemed like, and it was actually kind of a step back for Verlander, who was coming off 2 elite seasons, but he was still Justin Verlander. He was good. He was a 3.46 ERA. Yeah, tough. So it was 4.5 WAR. But then, yeah, that was Max Scherzer's coming out party for real. 21-3, 2.9 ERA, topped 200 innings for the first time, won his first Cy Young, 6 WAR. And he was one of the leading strikeout pitchers in baseball. And it was also a monster year for Anibal Sanchez, who he didn't pitch a ton of innings, but 14-8 with a 2.57 ERA, won the ERA title, also worth 6 WAR. So you got these two monsters in addition to a down Verlander year, which would be one of the better Tigers pitching years in the last 5-6 years, probably maybe the best. And then you got Doug Fister topping 200 innings with a 3.67 ERA. So that's your number 4 starter, is worth 4 WAR. And then Ricky Porcello. Just kind of, that was back in his days where he was just pitching to contact all the time, and he was like a reliable 4.5 ERA, league average pitcher. But kind of the wildest thing to me about the 2013 rotation was that the 5 main starters all made 29 starts. They only had 6 guys make starts that year. The other one was Jose Alvarez, who made 6. So just 6 starters go on that whole year. I mean, that's steady, reliable, awesome pitching, and that's and we saw it continue all the way into the playoffs, where Scherzer had the huge game 4, I believe, against the A's, and then Verlander shut down the A's in game 5. And then in the ALCS, I want to say they had a no-hitter going through 5 innings in each of the first 3 games, and somehow came out of that with only 1 win, 2 wins. Yeah. So
that sounds on brand.
Yeah, they won the first game 1-0 against the Red Sox, lost 6-5, and then infamous Big Papi home run in game 2, and then lost 1-0 in game 3. I remember that was that a Mike Napoli home run off Justin Verlander?
Yes,
it was. Yes, it was. Absolutely, it was.
Mike damn Napoli, jeez. There's one of the things that stands about this rotation, Chris, was only 1 shutout thrown the entire year.
Yeah, well, at least by a starter who went 9 innings, right? So they
complete game,
complete game shutout. I mean, those are just kind of hard to come by in general. Harder now than they were back in 2013, but still, that wasn't a huge thing. But yeah, I mean, that was the thing about about Max Scherzer, right? Forever was that he couldn't complete a game for whatever reason. He was dominant for 7 innings or 8 innings, and then couldn't finish it. And it was Jim Leland, I think. I remember him saying, like, his one piece of advice for Brad Ausmus was take Sanchez out before the 7th inning because he falls apart in the 7th or something like that. And, Verlander would be the guy who was normally doing that, but he had just pitched 7,000 innings over the previous 3 seasons, so he was probably falling apart a little bit. So, but and they also had Drew Smyly chipping in some good bullpen pitching that year, and he was kind of like he had made 18 starts the year before.
Yeah.
So he was. He was going to come in there and be a multi-inning reliever at times, like an old school stopper, and that was super helpful too. So yeah, it was just a fantastic pitching staff, and and it's just one of those weird things where that we were talking about it in our MCB Slack chat a couple weeks ago, where the thing that still bothers me to this day was in Game 6 of that ALCS, I think it was, when Max Scherzer struck out Xander Bogaerts, but it was called a walk. It was like the seventh inning, and it was a perfect pitch down and away, change up, and Bogarts took it, and it was absolutely in the strike zone, but they called it a walk, and then they had to pull Scherzer, and then a couple pitches later, Shane Victorino hits a grand slam, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, and even one of the things about the bullpen, and let's go right into the bullpen here real quick. It's, to me, you look at it on paper, and you have look at Smiley, you have Albuquerque, but not the same Albuquerque, and you have Benoit, but the Tigers, in terms of Benoit was effective. I mean, when he had the numbers down, and this was a bullpen that had gone through quite a bit with Valverde before in the past, and Valverde wasn't the same guy. But then you try and bring up Jeremy Bonderman, the ghost of Jeremy Bonderman, that wasn't going to happen. Yeah, that was not going to happen. Octavio Dotel was one of those arms that I think came pretty inexpensively, but this is a guy who seen wear and tear, and that was his last year in major leagues. That was after that. The whole Brian Varriel experience, exactly.
Hey, 15-year-old me loved me some Brian Valerial, baby. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Scott, didn't he have like a really cool mullet too? Like just
he had some hair going. Yeah, I was just blown away by the fact that this like 5'8" dude was pumping 97, and I was like, I'm all about it. Yeah.
And then
just to cut in real quick, Raj, I remember there was back in Tigers Twitter. Back then, there was a female on Tigers Twitter who randomly started dating Brian Villarreal.
Really?
Yeah, it was like, wait, what's going on here? Just like she'd be talking about her boyfriend, and it's pictures of her and Brian Villarreal. Like, and I don't know what happened to her. Her name was Ashley. I won't mention her last name, but yeah. Anyway, Tigers Twitter.
Oh, they have to tell me that afterwards, because that's back. I wasn't really on Twitter back then. I wasn't really engaging in tweets back then. It was more, I don't know what the hell I was doing in 2013 outside of baseball and all that, but I digress. But yeah, one of the things that Dave Dombrowski tried to do was he got Jose Varus from Houston, I believe it was, and a guy that you look on the name, look at the numbers on paper, stopgap measure, he has some pretty good numbers as far as not even strikeouts. I mean, but what, again, one of those things that if you look at the free agency, so I started looking at the free agents that year, heading into 2013, into that season, and what they could have potentially signed. Because one of the things I can remember what year was when how many times Joe Smith hit the free agent market. And I love Joe Smith, and because he's like sidearm, he offers a different approach, and I thought he's always been an effective reliever. He's always gotten it done, and I was looking at some of the names on here, and it's like just kind of a flashback a little bit. Mike Adams, Jeremy Afled. I don't know if you guys remember him at all. Yeah, that's a flashback.
Definitely.
And then a former Tiger, Tim Burdock, was a free agent. He signed for a minor league deal, but I believe the Mets did. But there's just looking at some of the free agents across the board. A guy this is a year where Ryan Dempster had got a 2-year, $26 million deal for the Red Sox. So Kyle Farnsworth was out there. There was a lot of guys that were considered you could add to the bullpen. And another one who was a former Tiger prospect was Jason Frazier, who signed with the Rangers. Jason Frazier had a really good bullpen run with Chicago, and then more with the Blue Jays longer too than that. But again, it was one I didn't understand why the Tigers didn't do more to, and this is Jason Grilli too. Remember Jason Grilli started becoming a thing with the Pirates too.
Yeah, we did.
Tigers legend.
Yeah, Tigers legend. And so there was a lot of that going on. But as far as Scott, I don't know where you want to pick up with this, but from there for the bullpen, but the offense, I mean, in terms of bats and Miguel Cabrera being just beast. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was his best year was 13, right? I mean, that he outperformed the Triple Crown year in 13. I mean, that was peak Miggy, and I mean, the whole that entire offense was unreal, man. And like Peralta gets popped for roids. Okay, cool. We bring in Jose Iglesias because the offense is so good. We don't need another bat. Like we have no dire need to have our shortstop what Peralta was hitting like 6th or 7th in that lineup. We have no need for that in with how good the lineup was. So we just got a borderline Gold Glove at the time, like thought of ceiling caliber defensive shortstop, and made an error in like the biggest moment of the postseason, which wasn't great. But for the regular season, and for as little power, and he couldn't draw walks, he didn't hit for power. He was damn near a 300 hitter his entire most of his Tigers tenure. So, I mean, that in the 9-hole was great, but 12, right? Prince, the Prince Miggy back to back, Austin Jackson in 13, and and the leadoff spot. But he one of the best, and all the analytics point to one of, if not the best defensive center fielder in Tigers history. I mean, was absolutely unbelievable out there. So having Iglesias and Ajax up the middle is phenomenal. V-Mart, he was out for 13, right? That was the year that he missed.
No, he played.
Oh, he played?
Was it 14 that he missed? He missed whatever. One of those years he was hurt. But I mean, peak V-Mart before the extension was he had a runner-up for MVP one of those years. The offense, I say all the time, the 2013 team, that was the team. I know the 14 team had like all the Cy Young winners, and everybody loves to do like now 5 Cy Young winners all in one rotation kind of thing. But the 13 team, I will take to my grave believing that was the team. That was the greatest Tigers team of my lifetime. I think that's one of the greatest Tigers teams in the history of the Tigers. I think it's up there with the 01 Mariners as being one of the best teams in baseball history to not win a ring. I will defend how good that team was forever. And I truly think 13 was the team.
Uber, any last thoughts on this before? Because I know there's several players too, like on the bench. One of my favorite ones that was talked about, Matt Tuls.
Tuiasosopo.
Yeah, that was a bat that I loved off the bench.
Absolutely.
Well, you assigned me the outfield, so I kind of looked at him a lot. He was kind of a platoon with Andy Dirks, and that worked out pretty well. Dirks didn't hit he hit better the year before. He was hurt a lot in 13. And I was surprised looking at Dirks. He only played 3 seasons with the Tigers. I don't know why I had it in my mind he was around longer. I know the injuries cut it short, but it just seemed like more than 3 seasons for Andy Dirks.
He's big within the organization still. Like, he goes to Tigers Fest every year. He's got a lot of connections. He just took a video like outside of Comerica like a week ago. Like, he very much is still prevalent too.
Yep.
Yeah. He believes in a higher. He definitely believes in a higher source.
And the big move they made that year, it was interesting. I remember this very vividly. I was home with my son then. Major League Baseball Network started the Hot Stove Show in the wintertime with Harold. And on the very first episode, in the very first 10 minutes, they announced the signing of Tory Hunter to the Tigers. And Hunter came on that morning. I remember that vividly. 37-year-old free agent. I remember at the time I was very ambivalent about it. Didn't think a whole lot about that move. I thought, he's 37. He's got to be at the end. And Tory Hunter wasn't fantastic, but he was really solid for the Tigers that year. 115 OPS plus. Played just about every day except for when he rested. 17 homers, hit 304. Just really turned into a good signing. Made the All-Star team. Won the Silver Slugger. So, when you think about the whole lineup, all of a sudden they parked Hunter in there. That turned into a nice signing for them. I never saw that one coming to the extent it did. He played better than I thought he had left in the tank.
There's a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, just the rest of the outfield. Austin Jackson, as Scott was talking about earlier, great defender. Then the backups, Tuiasosopo and really Don Kelly.
Don Kelly, baby.
78 games he appeared in the outfield. And of course they dealt Avi Garcia before he played much. So
I wonder why.
Yeah, there's I don't know, there's crazy. It's
I've never heard much about it.
yeah.
Was,
You know,
was that the was 2013 the year where Don Kelly made like the was it a diving catch in the outfield against the A's or no?
we had a
I guess he had
walk-off
the
sac
sacrifice
fly.
fly.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, it was
that's
either 12 or 13. I don't remember which.
Yeah.
But
13. had
Omar
so many
Infante
good-
scored, so whatever team Omar Infante was on.
Yeah. Well, and he was there on
He was on
13.
Oh, okay.
13,
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was you got like what 6-7 regulars who were above average offensive players in that lineup. Jackson, Fielder, Cabrera, Martinez, Infante, Hunter. Yeah, I mean that it was just
Crazy.
deep and yeah, it's a damn fine team.
Damn fine team. And yeah, I looked into the, we talk about the handoff between Leland and Osmus between 13 and 14. And Leland, the constant thing, the consistent thing with both of them was they were very stuck in their ways, I guess you would say. Leland was an old school manager, as we all know, and Osmus was just not a manager. So whatever style, I guess, you think he had, but they like Osmus was adamant on, especially with the bullpen, like this guy's my 8th inning guy and this guy's my 9th inning guy and whatever. And baseball's changed a lot. A lot of managers were still like that back then, but bullpen was already the weak point for that era. And it's just, if you just used like a little bit more information, like just a little bit more of like, oh, maybe we play a matchup a little bit. I don't know what could have been, I guess, but Leland used like 2 lineups all year. I mean, Leland, it was the
oh yeah, that was something that
Jackson was leading off. Yeah. Tory Hunter was batting 2. Then it was the big boys, and then V-Mart, and that like it was the exact copy paste every single day. And Osmus really wasn't much better, but yeah, it was. There he is. Honestly, like the thing that gets me the most about the difference between the two of them is Jim Leland loved the city of Detroit. The famous video of after they clinched the World Series berth and him crying and saying, talking about his parents were factory workers and he has a great appreciation for like blue collar cities and he hopes he made everybody proud, and he's like bawling his eyes out and loved Detroit and loved everything about it, loved all of his players, like just and Brad was not that. Brad Osmus was
it's one of those things where I feel like I believe it was Dan Dickerson. I'm trying to misquote him, but he talked about how he didn't even like doing the post game shows or didn't like doing that at all. And it's like that's
I think that was Dan, by the way.
Yeah. I think you said on recently on Tiger Talk or something along those lines. And so it's like, if you don't want to be, I mean, okay, maybe you have a legitimate gripe. You've been traded twice here in the 90s as a player, but I mean, you did come to be a manager. And so when there was rumors about him going to the Mets, we all kind of laughed about it, but the way he handled, we got a request. And yeah, you know what, Walter, I was actually going to pull that up. Walter in the YouTube wanted to know, can I play
one of these?
Yeah, like I have it. I was queuing it up. I'm trying, when I have to do 500 things at once, it gets hard, but I wanted to pull that up for you. So I'll put that here in a second, but no. And that was the thing in the 2014 team. It was just like that vibe and a lot of players like playing for Brad, but it's just, as a person who dealt with in terms of dealing with the media, he just wanted nothing to do with it at all. And even
he was definitely aloof. That's the word I put on him.
That's a polite way of saying it, Hooper. And you're more polite about it than I would say it, because I would say something else, but I'm not going to.
Same, very much.
Yeah. But yeah, here it is. Let's see if he does the. So this is, if anybody's watching on YouTube, we got the Leland video pulled up, and there it is.
Here it is. There it is, baby.
The mambo.
Oh man, he is. By the way, he's still full of energy. We've seen him a couple times in Toledo, and what was it, Chris? Didn't he sprint down the stairs once? Like, just he came right up to Dan Hubbs and
Yeah, he was. Well, I think he's got to get in and get his smokes and get back to the seat as quickly as possible. So
I heard he was trying to quit. Is that not true? No, trying.
Yeah,
I don't think he quit. But
yeah, it's possible. But yeah, he was out and back rather quickly. So I don't know.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It was funny. It was just funny because like you just all of a sudden we're about like I'm at the corner end of at the end of the row and just see Leland just flying in. He's talking about Matt Manning's fastball when he was down in Toledo, and that was just one of those conversations when you're overhearing it. You're just like Chris and I go like ducking underneath, going write notes. And
this is actually a great point by Christopher in the comments too, because like Ausmus, played here, and his only All-Star season in his entire career was with the Detroit Tigers. And also, I just learned this like a week ago. The Tigers, Brad Ausmus was a captain, like a official, like on the team page, like documented by Major League Baseball, captain of the 1999 Detroit Tigers. Did not know that. They gave out, I want to say they gave out 3 of them that year. They had like a whole page of like, oh, these are all the captains in Tigers history, and there haven't been that many. And Brad Ausmus was one, and he was an all-star that year, and the catcher, the catcher always gets a little bit of love in being like the leader kind of a thing, but just fascinated me that of all people, one of the least, I think it's pretty fair to say one of the least liked managers in the history of the Tigers ended up being the captain of the team when he was a player. I just found that kind of ironic.
Which is interesting. You bring up a good point there, Scott, because the reason why I find it ironic is because Tony Clark is still on that team. You have, but Tony Clark was.
I think he was one of the captains too, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, okay. That's because I couldn't remember if it was a captain or not. I remember Ausmus, and I thought that was still strange at the time that they made a big deal about being a captain, and it like that's good in Boston, but in Detroit was never a thing. But
lasted a year. So.
That was because it's really ridiculous. But then you look at the rest of that team, and he was kind of like. He was the second, besides Luis Polonia, that's what I remember. He was on that team too. But as far as regulars concerned, he was one of the oldest ones on the team. You still had Tony Clark, who was in his late 20s. Dean Palmer's first season in Detroit.
Dean Palmer.
Yeah, that was a guy. If he didn't have any injuries, I can go on about Dean Palmer, and he's actually and Easley. Yeah, Damian Easley.
Damian Easley, man.
Yeah, Damian Easley was kind of a quiet guy. He wasn't really much of a leader type person, but that was one of if there's one trade that Randy Smith worked out on for Greg Gore, that was it. That was it. And so, but yeah, good call there. The captain stuff. I mean, yeah, he didn't. I mean, this guy got traded twice. Randy Smith was like making deals with his dad over in Taj and over in Houston. So
well, and so he would have been the captain in 2000, right? With the infamous airplane incident.
Oh, yes.
Good call.
Yeah, I know. Maybe a lot of younger fans don't know about the infamous airplane incident, but the same thing that a lot of people didn't know that Bobby Higginson used to hang out a lot of bars in Hazel Park, apparently. So, but again, I'm not here to do hearsay or anything. That's the point of the pod. But
2014. Sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead.
No, yeah.
You're doing the right thing, steering the conversation back. Please go.
That was really kind of a low-key Dombrowski year where a lot of things worked out well for him. Even though it was only an 86-win team, but they were able to move Fielder and bring in Kinsler, who, had a good at least first half for them. They found JD Martinez out of nowhere. And you look at what he did that first year in Detroit, OPS plus of 154. Jeez. That was outstanding. He pulled off the big trade for David Price at the deadline. It was really a year where they brought in Rajai Davis, and that worked out well. He really swung for the fences that year and tried to keep that thing going with a team that was leaking some oil. I just think he really showed what he brought to the table that season.
That's a great point. Yeah, he was batting a high batting average that year. Absolutely.
Well, and that was, they began, but that was when they traded Doug Fister. He was gone from the 14 squad, and they got Robbie Ray, which people didn't like at the time. And, Robbie Ray's had 7 careers since then, but ended up being pretty good. And you think it continues on after that? That was Rick Porcello's like breakout campaign that year. He topped 200 innings, had like a 3.5 ERA, and then Dombrowski was able to turn that into Yoenis Cespedes in the offseason. I mean, that's more of the 2015 season, but still, yeah, that's a good point. He had a good year of transactions. It was probably his last good year of transactions for the Tigers. Although, I mean, you could argue that the Fulmer trade and the Boyd Norris trades were good, but the Alfredo Simon deal not so much.
Ooh.
I still have audio of that. It was it was early on in the Tigers SRD Day podcast. I remember my old former partner, who shall not be named, mentioned how pissed he was about it. And I was just originally like, why? I mean, there were power there, and he went on this giant rant about it. So, that was it was one of those things that even then, like, it wasn't even whether he's going to work out or not. Just training out a player with that much upside, a young player with that kind of club control versus a guy like Simone. I've heard Simone as well.
I've always said Simone either way.
Yeah. Either way.
So I got that notification while I was sitting in chemistry class in high school. I remember this very vividly. I remember the Alfredo Simone deal. I was sitting. I did not have a good grade in that class, and the chemistry not my friend. And I remember freaking out, and I asked to go to the bathroom so I could call my other buddy out of his class so we could bitch about it in the hallway and freak out about it, which we did. And then once we got it all out of our systems, we went back to class. And then I got asked why I took a 20-minute long bathroom break. And I remember that whole thing very well, because that was winter meetings, right? And so I remember I was refreshing all day with winter meetings, refreshing my phone all day, and I remember sitting in I think sophomore junior year chemistry class and learning about that trade.
Yeah, I feel like that was the final day of winter meetings, and it was already after a couple of moves that had been made. But the quirk I remember about that is that it had been announced that the Tigers had traded for a starter on the Reds. That was the original information. So people were like, wait, which one? And it was like, it were like, well, as long as it's not Alfredo Simon. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, that was, I remember, screw it. Ben was my former partner on the podcast, and he was the one that called me and asked me about what we were just discussing beforehand, and I was stunned. I mean, again, because the upside of what his bat was capable of, and the Tigers didn't give him. But that was like, you look at it in retrospect, that's Dombrowski's calling card, and the way he drafted was the same way. Get a guy enough hype to then flip it for a veteran player, and that worked for him. And this goes back to days when he was in Montreal too, and the Marlins. And there's classic examples. I you know what? There should be I'm telling you this right now. There should be a college class on Dave Dombrowski trades. I take that class. No, seriously, there's enough there to work with, because you can look at every stop at Boston. What he normally does didn't work this time, and Boston was like, no, we want to. So there's many things you can do. There's so many different ways to write a paper about it.
Well, I think we just found the next 12 columns for MCB.
Master class.
But
trading.
You go back to 2014 in the spring, and you talk about Dombrowski. Another thing he did that year was a move he didn't make that I was always so impressed about. Iglesias got hurt right toward the end of spring training.
Shins, yeah.
And everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were saying, sign Stephen Drew. He had not signed yet. He was out there. He would have cost the Tigers a fair amount of cash, but also a draft pick. And instead, they went out and got, what's his name, from the Angels, Gonzalez or something, right? He did nothing for them. But
Alex Gonzalez.
Yeah, and he was a nothing move. And I remember people saying that Dombrowski panicked. There was an article, might have been McCoskey, but who knows? But that he panicked getting this Gonzalez, and I was thinking the exact opposite. That was kind of the low-key play. He got just a body. I think the panic move is if he would have thrown money at Stephen Drew, who ended up doing nothing that year. He hit about 180. And I thought that was kind of one of those times where he had addition by doing nothing. They just played it out with the team they had and worked out much better for them.
Yeah, especially in a situation where you're looking at, some of those players that are now, we kind of look back and, of course, there's Tyler Collins and the infamous finger thing. And then there's Danny Worth. Yeah, there's Danny Worth. There's even the last.
Didn't Adam Everett I think Adam Everett was an opening day shortstop starter one of those years.
Romine was. It was Romine.
Romine, sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's. And Andrew Romine, as far as in terms of shortstops, he was what he was going to get. Was going to be a glove first shortstop, and kind of like a retro shortstop from back in the late either 70s or 80s, depending on your point of view on it. But one of the things about the 2014 Tigers that I'm just astonished by is the fact that this was the last team that had 3 200 plus inning pitchers. And that's something you're not going to see anymore because whether it's a shortened season or not, guys don't do 200 innings anymore. And 3 starter. You look at a team like, I can think of like the 80, like for example, the 72 Tigers where Billy Martin just literally wore those guys down to the bone. Mickey Lolich threw 373 innings. Yeah. 373 innings. You think about that now. People do that in 2 seasons.
Well, people talk about Fidrich and how, you know what I mean? Why he was only able to pitch a season and a half because his rookie year he was worked to hell and back. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a guy, and something that I did a Tiger minor league fact about him. He did not start. He was mainly used out of the bullpen, and then he started starting later in his career in the minor leagues before he got called up. But that 72 team, by the way, I just wanted to throw out there. They had 4 guys who threw. They had David Roberts. I'm sorry, this is 76 team. David Roberts, Mark Fidrich, and Vern Rule. Fidrich and Roberts. Both Roberts had 250 innings, and Fidrich had 250. I'm sorry, Fidrich had 250 innings. Roberts had 252. And then you see the numbers
rookie for Fidrich.
Yeah, as a rookie. And then you look at his numbers, and he won Rookie of the Year with 250 innings and 97 strikeouts. That's how far the game's changed.
Yeah, he was runner-up for Cy Young with like a 3.5 K per 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's yeah, you think about that now, and it's crazy to think. But anyways, this is the day in the era too where bullpen guys would throw 120 innings, just like John Hiller did on a regular basis. But any last thoughts about the 20? I just realized that I named the name of the podcast 2013 Tigers. I just realized that. But there's anything else about this team that stood out to you was fun? What were the final thoughts about the 2014 team?
What was interesting to me is, they beat the Royals by 1 game, and that season was the year the Royals started to come on the scene. You saw what was going to happen over the next couple of seasons when they went to the World Series twice. They weren't quite there yet, but they were on the move. And the Tigers, even with a team that was kind of busting at the seams a little bit, they were coming apart. They were able to hold them off, and that was kind of the cool part of that season. And the one thing I always love, I love little moments that are underappreciated. And since they won that division by 1 game that year, Hernan Perez, who did basically nothing on the field all year, he's the guy in Kansas City when Kinsler and Suarez threw the ball away and Sal Perez did not take up at third base on a line drive. Okay. He did not take up, and the Tigers got him out on an appeal. And I'm an umpire, so I was watching that. I actually was jumping up and down. They got an appeal because they showed the replay. Hernan Perez was the only guy in the dugout who noticed Sal Perez did not take up. They got that out, got out of an inning for Scherzer. They won that game. It was on a Saturday afternoon, and they end up winning the division by 1 game over those guys. So Hernan Perez, I don't know if he did much as a Tiger, but he had a big day that day. from the bench.
Yeah, he's always was a good role player too, Milwaukee. Chris, did we have any questions this evening?
Yeah, we ended up with a handful of questions.
Nice.
A lot of the usual suspects here. This one I thought was pretty fun. From Deadly Ninja Bees, of course. He said, somewhere in the multiverse, Dombrowski has returned to the Tigers. Who is the best player he could get for Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson package?
Oh man. Who wants to start with this one? Scott's face is priceless. Just like,
well, yeah. So I mean, I got to see this before. So I was looking at it, and it's like, we were having some fun earlier about what would it take to get Juan Soto, and I think that would be a start. But like realistically, maybe like Jose Ramirez. I don't know if he would want to trade within the division. But I'm trying to think of a player who's still relatively young, who's still very good. But then you got to get into the contract details. I think Ramirez is only signed for like 2 more years.
I was going to say, I think Ramirez is coming up on the end of his deal there. Wow. I can't even fathom. That's like not even something I've ever entertained. Like I can't even put a value.
Well, I can put something together. I think, okay, so if we're gonna do that, and you want to win now, this is what you do, and this is gonna solve a lot of your problems. If you want to win now, you go to Oakland, say, hey, I want Matt Olson, I want Sean Manera, and I also want Frankie Montez, and you throw in a guy like Ramon Larinero, because he's a good outfielder and give you that kind of that helps out the veteran, gives a veteran outfielder presence for the Tigers.
Certainly helps the I mean, you're gonna have some crazy type of pitching depth. That's for sure after that.
Can those two guys get you in a conversation for Mike Trout?
I don't think so. I think LA, he's the only one of the. I mean, something that I was talking to in our Discord channel that they mentioned along the lines of that Ghost Mav said, and this is one of the funniest things. That did you guys know who he endorses? Big Mike Trout's biggest endorsement, one of his biggest endorsements.
Weather Channel?
Super Pretzel. Super Pretzel. You're showing me, like, if you go down the frozen aisle at a grocery store and you stop and get a frozen pretzel or look at soft pretzel boxes, Mike Trout's on the box of them. I had no idea. I always go to I always get my pretzels fresh, by the way. Whatever the place is in the mall, Aunt
Annie's.
Yeah, whatever the case is. Yeah, but yeah, so that's again in terms of marketability, but yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other offers, but that's what I go with. I go to Oakland, raid them, and try to hit Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, hit home runs out of that tavern. Good luck.
Oh,
fair enough. I mean, that's. I'm trying to think of one, like a 2-for-1, and I'm not even sure there's a player like exact value wise that I can even think of that would. And then, like you talk about Trout, Chris ain't dropping that contract. Maybe Green and Torque plus the Angels eat half of that. Then he might consider it. But I mean, Chris ain't eating that insanely huge deal.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the last time the Tigers had 2 top 10 prospects, it was Andrew Miller and Cameron Maben, and they were able to trade them to get Miguel Cabrera, who was 25 at the time, 24, but it was already a couple years left. I mean, maybe like an Ohtani, if you're going to trade, like if the Angels are not going to spend $150 million or $200 million or whatever it's going to cost to sign him, probably more than that, something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Also, maybe don't trade those guys. Dombrowski, he held on to Castellanos, he held on to Xander Bogaerts, he held on to Rafael Devers. He he believed in keeping some guys
Yeah.
that he thought were good. So there's that.
Held on to Stephen Moya.
Well, that power. I mean,
Hey, people forget Stephen Moya still has great potential, and y'all are going to see someday.
Yeah, when he's 37 years old and not striking out in Korea anymore. Is he in Korea or Japan now?
Japan. NPB, I think, still.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's for anybody out there who is too young to remember the greatness that was Stephen Moya, who I mean, it was. Would you equate him to Olnell Cruz in terms of size?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I watched really quickly. I went down and saw Moya. I think it must have been summer break or something. I saw him when he was in single A, and we were just like happened to be near the stadium, and tickets are cheap, and we're like, hey, let's go see like the Tiger single A. And we're like, sure. And Moya was on that team, and he went 2 for 5 with 3 strikeouts and 2 homers, I think. And he went over and was like signing, baseballs for kids after the game and stuff. And I remember I was probably like 6 foot when I was like 14, and he towered over me. And I got to meet him, and like I didn't have anything for him to sign, so like whatever. But I got to like talk to him for a minute or two, and I will never forget how just massive of a human being he was down there in single A, and so much bigger than everybody. And I never lost faith. I still have faith. He's gonna come back. He's gonna be a 40 home run talent.
Well, let's hope.
All right, Chris, we had more. What's any more questions?
Yeah, a couple more. We had, let's see. K Turret, should Congress revoke MLB's antitrust exemption and force the sleazy, lying, parasitical fat cat oligarch owners to embrace capitalism and legitimately compete for players? I say yes.
I say yes, too. That's a good question. I love the way K Turret.
Yeah. One of the problems, and that would be great, but you can't throw a rock in this country without finding a politician who can be bought. And we saw it with the Saving America's Pastime Act, where Major League Baseball bought politicians on both sides. We're like, hey, you guys pass this. And so, yeah, that would never go through. And then, presuming if it ever made it to the Supreme Court, I don't think it would. We've got a conservative court right now, although they did rule against the NCAA, but I think everybody could see that was not going to work. So, I don't know why baseball has an antitrust exemption, and I don't think it should. But I also know that courts always just go, precedent. They've had it before; they can keep it. So,
well, I think also Congress has once they gave it to them. There's been a couple times in history where Congress has kind of held it over baseball's head a little bit, that we will take it away, and they kind of massage baseball into acting how they want it. So that could happen. And that was used for expansion back in the 60s. And it was used during the steroid debates. So I think Congress likes having that hammer to swing as well. And if they took it away, they wouldn't have it anymore.
I mean, I've seen Bernie Sanders, I think, had a statement. I think there have been a couple other politicians, but I haven't seen. They've got some other stuff on their mind right now, I guess.
Fair.
Yes, very true.
One of the questions I did see that was funny. Have you ever played Tiddlywinks? And would you advise that it's a supplement / replacement for my time that's usually devoted to all things baseball? No, you should play as Pogs. Get some Pogs, slam some Pogs. Scott, again, I'm mentioning this. Scott's probably like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You remember?
I'm familiar.
Okay, all right, good. All right, good. And this is this one. By the way, Charlie Pickering with this one. I'll go ahead and read this. Will Dylan Dingler ding dingers despite Double-A doing him dirty, or does detrimental decision making deter Dingler dazzle at the dish? I got it. I said the whole thing without stuttering. One time. Hell yeah.
Oh, babe. Hell yeah.
Well, to answer the actual question, Dinkler had a couple made some hard contact today at the scrimmage. I know that there's been a lot of concern about because he really did just absolutely crater a Double-A last year after the first couple weeks, but he was really hot when he started at Double-A, and I refuse to believe that like suddenly the Double-A scouting report got out on him. Like, oh yeah, all right, we know exactly how to attack him. I think there may have been some of that injury, and I think just playing catcher every day in the dead of summer for the first time, it's very hard. And I remember saying, you watching him play, it looked like he was swinging his bat underwater at times, just like he was exhausted, like he probably couldn't feel his arms. So, and I don't think he's ever going to be like a high walk guy, but he didn't strike me as somebody who really expanded the zone a ton. He would swing through some pitches, and he could be beaten by the usual stuff, fastballs at the letters and breaking balls low and away. But I don't know. I think his decision making is largely okay. We'll see what happens this year, I guess.
I've been saying what you just said about him being a catcher, and that's probably the most consecutive games or relatively consecutive games in a row he's ever caught in his entire life. And I think that probably had just a lot more to do with it than I've been saying that for months now. I've been preaching that. And so I'm glad you said that. I completely agree. I think nice offseason under him. He's seen Double-A pitching now. You keep him there to start. I think he'll be fine. It's just catchers have to do the same thing that pitchers have to do. They have to get slowly stretched out when it comes to to being able to play, every day for a full season.
Yeah. You see it in college ball. He's playing 2 or 3 times a week tops with a lot of off days. Plus he's seeing some guys at the end of a college bullpen who might be throwing 84,
Yeah.
At Double-A, they're doing a little better than that. So I think you guys are completely right. Let's just give him his second pro season before we write him off.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, I remember in West Michigan watching him. It was like watching a surgeon in terms of how he was backpicking.
He was unreal. Yeah. Like, seriously, I'm not even exaggerating. One of the most dominant, like, single player performances I've ever seen from a non-pitcher. Like, 3 different times that season. I mean, he had one game where he went, I think he went like 2 for 3 with a walk and like a couple of doubles, a couple of RBIs, caught a guy stealing at second, back picked 2 guys at first. Like he was dominant in single A. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. And the one of the things I take away from watching him perform was the fact that he looked fresh. And then when we saw him in Erie, we saw him the first time with Erie, right? Yeah, and so it was just
he played the second time we were there too, I think. Unless he was he injured at that point? I thought he was.
I think he was injured. I thought he was injured the second time we went, but it was night and day, and you could tell either it was a hand injury or not. So I'm not worried about it. But I mean, in terms of you between Chris and I and Scott, I'm sure you remember the Sam McMillan days and the Joey Morgan and just the kind of placeholders. And no offense, I mean Sam McMillan retired this year, but to see, and Cooper Johnson too. I think Cooper Johnson's still a good defensive catcher that should get some props.
Oh yeah.
Whether the bat comes alive or not is regardless. But Cooper Johnson, watching him in Lakeland last year, slide back and forth. I mean, all these pitchers were going wild, and Cooper stopped it all. And he did such a great job, and even at West Michigan. So you have to be happy with that. But in terms of people writing off Dingler already, or he should be ranked. I mean, he ranked in 106 on the Fangraphs top 100 prospects. He's doing fine.
He's fine.
So, but anything else? Okay, so this is your time to plug everything, Scott. What do you have going on? I know, like I said, you're busy with high school hockey, but what else you got going on?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I got daily show, Locked On Tigers, and then Red Wings are fun this year, so Locked On Red Wings as well, another daily show. Both of those, Locked On Red Wings is now on YouTube too, which was a big thing to not transition, but add that. So we've seen a lot of support on there, so that's super cool. Locked On Tigers will be on YouTube super soon as well. And then, yeah, really besides that, it's just the Detroit news and high school hockey states are this upcoming weekend and next weekend. So that'll be super fun. And then, yeah, hopefully rolling into to high school baseball coverage here in a few weeks as well.
we'll definitely be probably seeing out there at some point too, because we're even with season or not, there's a renewed interest in also in college baseball too. That's good to see. As definitely, there's a lot of good college baseball stories out there, and I know that you guys have been posting. You, Chris, and I think you. I don't know if you've been watching a lot of college baseball. I'm just finally catching up, finally getting into a little bit, but there's so much good stuff going on. So don't let in terms of the I guess the season delay get you down. I understand there's some hardcore fans out there, some fans who just don't care. But honestly, right now, even with Michigan being kind of a down season with them as far as baseball program goes, there's still some really good schools to check out.
Did you see that game? What was it yesterday? 2 days, 20-14.
Yeah, I saw that. Chris, I saw that tweet. They
tweeted out a dude hit a home run, and somebody they took a video of it, and somebody had texted them right at the beginning of it, and they didn't notice it, and the text was like, "What the f- is happening?" Like literally, and they deleted it super quick, but I was able to get it. It was Bullpen Frank, I think, was the who sent it to him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's hilarious. Yeah, no, Fetter's not too happy with that pitching performance by the old alma mater there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long season for them, but either way, there's so much college baseball to watch out for. You can get pumped about Andrew Jones' kid. You can get, I know the SEC right now has been doing some in terms of Tennessee. They had that one pitcher from Tennessee who was throwing like
103 consistently.
103. Yeah, without no problem. Just he made it look, and he had his windup look flawless too. Just reached it back there. Yeah, there's so much good stuff to worry about. In other words, so don't let this deter you. So next week we have 2 shows, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday. Thursday we're gonna have a pair of UP people on, as a Uper is united with his friend. And Uper, make sure to say David Laurela. Thank you, David Laura from Fangraphs will be joining us Wednesday. I can't tell you who the guest is going to be. I can't say it. It's just we're just hoping everything gets fingers crossed and what have you. And it's going to be one of the. I'll just tell you this. Everyone's going to love it. That's all I'm going to tell you. I can't tell you anything else than that. For that note, though, we'll let Scott do his thing because Scott still has to work, and it's now recording time at 10:20. So we'll let Scott be. Thank you so much for joining us, Scott. I really appreciate it. And,
yeah, thanks for having me, for real.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you at a game here soon. And hopefully for the minor leagues, we'll have you out for West Michigan's having a media day coming up. So hopefully we'll see you out there, and we'll go from there, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you, guys, for real.
All right, man. And like I said, we'll see you next week. 2 shows next week. Have a great week, everybody.